List of women executed in the United States since 1976. Since the United States Supreme Court resumed capital punishment, there are 16 women executed since then. These are their names, crime committed and date of executions. The first woman executed was Margie Velma Barfield. Velma Barfield was executed on November 2, 1984. Velma was an American serial killer who was convicted of one murder, but who eventually confessed to 6 murders in total. Barfield was the first woman in the United States to be executed after the 1976 resumption of capital punishment, and the first since 1962. She was also the first woman to be executed by lethal injection. The second woman executed was Carla Faye Tucker. Carla was executed on February 3, 1998. Carla was an American woman sentenced to death for killing 2 people with a pickaxe during a burglary. She was the second woman to be executed in the United States and the first in Texas since Quipita Rodriguez in 1863. She was convicted of murder in Texas in 1984 and executed by lethal injection after 14 years on death row. Due to her gender and widely publicized conversion to Christianity, she inspired an unusually large national and international movement that advocated the commutation of her sentence to life without parole. A movement that included a few foreign government officials. Judy Boyle. Judy, born Judith Welty, also known as Judith Goodyear and Judith Morris, was executed on March 30, 1998. Judy was an American serial killer who was executed for the 1971 murder of her husband James Goodyear. She was also convicted for the 1980 murder of her son, Michael Bueno, and of the 1983 attempted murder of her boyfriend John Gentry Bueno. Is also acknowledged to have been responsible for the 1978 death of her boyfriend Bobby Joe Morris in Colorado. However, by the time authorities made the connection between Bueno and Morris, she had already been sentenced to death in the state of Florida. Bueno is also believed to have been involved in a 1974 murder in Alabama, and in the 1980 death of her boyfriend Gerald Dossett. After her arrest, Dossett's body was exhumed and analyzed for signs of arsenic poisoning. No charges were laid in that case. Bueno was the first woman to be executed in Florida since 1848. Betty Lou Beets. Betty was executed on February 24, 2000. She was a murderer executed in the U.S. state of Texas. She was convicted of shooting her 5th husband, Jimmy Don Beets, on August 6, 1983. Christina Marie Riggs. Christina was executed on May 2, 2000. She was convicted of the November 4, 1997, murder of her 2 young children, Justin Dalton Thomas, age 5, and Shelby Alexis Riggs, age 2. She was executed by lethal injection, the first woman to be executed in Arkansas since 1845. Wanda Jean Allen. Wanda Jean was executed on January 11, 2001. She was sentenced to death in 1989 for the murder of Gloria Jean Leathers, her longtime girlfriend. Allen was the first black woman to be executed in the United States since 1954. She was the 6th woman to be executed since executions resumed in the United States in 1977. Marilyn K Plants. Marilyn K was executed on May 1, 2001. Marilyn had hired her boyfriend, a teenager named Clifford Bryson, and his friend, William McKimble, to kill her husband. She hoped that her husband's death would net over $300,000 in life insurance. Lois Nadine Smith. Nicknamed Mean Nadine, 61-year-old Lois Smith was executed on 4 December 2001 for killing Cindy Bailey, the ex-girlfriend of her son, Gregg Smith. The mother and son are said to have collected Cindy from a motel and interrogated her in the back of a car over rumors she had tried to arrange for Gregg to be killed and would then reveal his drug dealing to police. Lois was then said to have choked the girl and stabbed her in the throat, before taking her to a house and forcing her into a chair. Witnesses say they saw Lois fire multiple gunshots, before jumping up and down on Cindy's neck. Linda Lyon Block. Linda was executed on May 10, 2002. In her role in killing Opelika Police Sergeant Roger Motley in 1993. Eileen Carol Lee. Eileen Wuornos, born Eileen Carol Pittman, was executed on October 9, 2002. She was an American serial killer and sex worker who murdered 7 men in Florida in 1989 and 1990 by shooting them at point-blank range. Wuornos claimed that her victims had either raped or attempted to rape her while they were soliciting sex from her, and that all of the homicides were committed in self-defense. She was sentenced to death for 6 of the murders. Frances Elaine McElmore Newton. Frances Newton was executed on September 14, 2005. She was executed by lethal injection in the state of Texas for the April 7, 1987 murder of her husband, Adrian, 23, her son, Alton, 7, and daughter, Farah, 21 months. Theresa Lewis. Theresa Wilson Bean Lewis was executed on September 23, 2010. She was an American murderer who was the only woman on death row in Virginia prior to her execution. She was sentenced to death by lethal injection for the murders of her husband and stepson in October 2002. Lewis sought to profit from a $250,000 life insurance policy her stepson had taken out as a U.S. Army reservist in anticipation of his deployment to Iraq. In September 2010, Lewis became the first female inmate to die by lethal injection in the state of Virginia. The state had last executed a woman in 1912. The case led to debate over capital punishment owing to Lewis's sex, as well as to questions regarding her mental capacity. Kimberly Cargill McCarthy. Kimberly was executed on June 26, 2013. She was a death row inmate who was convicted and sentenced to death for the 1997 murder of her neighbor, 71-year-old retired college professor Dorothy Booth. In her Lancaster, Texas, Dallas, Fort Worth area home during a robbery. She was also a suspect in the murders of 2 other elderly Texas women, for which she was never tried. McCarthy was executed by the state of Texas by lethal injection, becoming the 500th person to be executed by the state of Texas using that method. Suzanne Basso. Suzanne Margaret, Sue Basso, was executed on February 5, 2014. She was an American woman who was one of 6 co-defendants convicted in the August 1998 torture and murder of Louis Buddy Musso, a mentally disabled man who was killed for his life insurance money. She was sentenced to death in October 1999. Basso was executed by lethal. Lisa Ann Coleman. Lisa was convicted and sentenced to death for the 2004 starvation death of her girlfriend's son, Devontae Marcel Williams. Lisa Coleman was executed on the 17th of September, 2014. Kelly Gissendanner. Kelly Renee Gissendanner was executed on September 30, 2015. She was an American woman who was executed by the U.S. state of Georgia. Gissendanner had been convicted of orchestrating the murder of her husband, Douglas Gissendanner. At the time of the murder, Gissendanner was 28 and her husband was 30. After her conviction, and until her execution, Gissendanner was the only woman on death row in Georgia. From 1976 till date there are 1,529 people in total are executed in the United States, amongst which 16 are women, and 1,513 are men.